What is America to me? A name, a map, the flag I see, a certain word, democracy. What is America to me? The house I live in, a plot of earth, a street.
Good morning, America. This is Stuart Ryan with the Ryan Report. And today's subject is really the end of the judiciary, the attacks on the entire court system, ignoring orders from judges, from federal district court judges and appeals panels, as well as an attack on the legal profession, as it were, applying an enormous economic pressure on them to really renounce their duties. And that's our starting point with the realization that we're living through a fascist dictatorship, without a doubt. And there's no way at present out of it.
And Trump is trying to create his own personal legal strike force. Elie's also author of the upcoming book, Bad Law, 10 Popular Laws That Are Ruining America. Elie, thanks for coming back to Democracy Now! What is happening right now with this presidential attack on judges?
We live in a fascist dictatorship.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Supreme Court Justice John Roberts has issued a rare statement Tuesday criticizing calls by President Trump and his allies to impeach federal judges that rule against him. Chief Justice Roberts wrote, quote, "For more than 2 centuries, it's been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose," end quote. Chief Justice Roberts' statement came after Trump repeatedly attacked U.S. District Judge, that's federal Judge James Boasberg, who ordered the Trump administration to stop using the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to deport immigrants. It has only been used 3 times before in U.S. history, and those times during war.
So the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals just handed down a really important decision in what might be the most important case going on right now. Why should you care about this case? Well, if you don't want to be grabbed off the street, put on a plane, sent to some prison in some other country without ever having a chance to tell a judge, hey, they've got the wrong guy, then you should care about this case. The Court of Appeals decided to uphold, for a time, the lower court decision by a judge named Boasberg. But before I get into the case, let me just tell you, it's a little complicated. There are a lot of twists and turns. You got to give me time. It's kind of like this.
This is a very complicated case, Maude. You know, a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous, and a lot of strands to keep in my head, man. You know.
So let me see if I can break this down, because this is a case you really ought to know about. So first, you have an effort to deport hundreds of people the Trump administration considers members of a Venezuelan gang called Tren de Aragua. Now, most of us support the idea of deporting violent criminals who are illegally in the country, but this case goes well beyond that, and let me explain why. So the case begins when organizations file suit concerned that some of the people that are being deported are in fact not members of this gang and maybe not members of any gang whatsoever and are wrongly included in this group. So they file suit in the District of Columbia, and the judge issues a temporary restraining order. That means, hold off, let me look into this, don't send these people out of the country until we can examine whether you've got the right people and whether this is legal. So while that temporary restraining order is in place, Donald Trump signs a proclamation invoking the Alien Enemies Act. So what the hell is the Alien Enemies Act? Okay, the Alien Enemies Act was passed in 1798. It applies under certain circumstances, like we're at war with another country, or there's an invasion of our country or an incursion of our country directed by some foreign government. It's only been used 3 times during our history, all during actual wars, like the First World War and the Second World War. But here it's being invoked at a time we are not at war with Venezuela, for example. And so they invoke this act. The judge wants to make sure that it's legal, but also that they've got the right people. And meanwhile, the Trump administration is loading these people onto planes. Notwithstanding the fact the court has ordered that they not be sent out of the country, they're being loaded onto planes. And the lawyers for these deportees are saying they're going to be taking off. And the judge is trying to find out from the Justice Department, are you taking people out of the country? Are you violating my restraining order? And the lawyers representing the Department of Justice are feigning ignorance and saying, well, we really don't know, Judge. And then finally they get information that during the course of this proceeding, in fact, one plane is taking off and a second plane is taking off. And the judge says, basically, you need to turn around those planes. But they don't.
Well, here the Trump administration is directly saying, you just played that ghoul Stephen Miller, directly saying that the federal judges don't have authority over this administration. Right. So that's number one. That's the biggest break from the past. They're not even pretending to acknowledge the authority of the federal judiciary to restrain or control this administration. Right. So that's number one. Number two, when you look at those historical examples, you're talking for the most part about military funding, right? You're talking about, Andrew Jackson saying the judges made his order, now let him enforce it as he's committing genocide against the Native Americans. You're talking about Teddy Roosevelt sending the Navy halfway out into the Pacific and saying, like, Congress, I'm sure you will fund them to bring them back, won't you? You're talking about the executive branch executing its large control, the commander in chief exercising his large control over the American military. This ain't that. All right. This isn't a military situation. This is Congress appointed money for USAID, put the money back on, turn the money back on, and Trump saying, no, I ain't. Absolutely not. This is a judge saying, turn the planes around and bring those people back. And Trump saying, nope, won't do that either. This is straight up, again, this is straight up authoritarianism. This is straight up one man's whim alone controls the country. As you played, you've got his border czar out there literally saying he's not going to respect judicial opinions. You've got Stephen Miller saying that. You've got Trump saying that. And that's what's different from the past. If anybody thinks that there's a equivalency here, I'd like to just remind people that I am old enough to remember when the Supreme Court unconstitutionally, in my mind, outlawed abortions. I'm old enough to remember that. I'm old enough to remember President Joe Biden not going into Texas and being like, abortions for everybody, right? I remember Joe Biden respecting the Supreme Court's ridiculous order when it came to a woman's right to choose. And so I would just contrast Biden's restraint when it came to judges versus what we're seeing from the Trump administration.
The collapse of prominent law firms caving to Donald Trump at the White House through the use of executive orders threatening them with the loss of their security clearances, considering that these law firms often represent opponents and critics of Donald Trump in major cases, with one law firm committing to spend $40 million on Trumpist cases, which is the strangest thing I've ever heard of, is part of this kind of focused attack on the judiciary, which includes its officers of the law, meaning lawyers and prominent law firms in particular.
We have an executive order for your attention. We've taken action against a number of law firms that have participated either in the weaponization of government, the weaponization of the legal system for political ends, or have otherwise engaged in illegal or inappropriate activities. The law firm of Jenner and Block is one of these law firms. This is a law firm that, as you know, employed Andrew Weissman after he came off of the Mueller investigation. It's a law firm that's engaged in invidious racially and sexually discriminatory practices. It's also a law firm that has participated in the weaponization of the legal system against American principles and values, and we believe that the measures in this executive order will help correct that.
And Andrew Weissman is the main culprit?
He's certainly
with respect to this firm.
He is one of a number of reasons that we believe this executive order is warranted.
He's a bad guy. Okay.
A conducive judge, I might say, to make sure that their point of view is seen and heard and that an injunction can be issued. Now, what happened? President Trump had directed Attorney General Pam Bondi to flag law firms involved in frivolous lawsuits against his administration, because the office of the Attorney General would be getting all these summons from various courts. So they know which is the law firm that is filing against a certain move of the Trump administration. So what Trump wanted to find out was, which are these law firms? What are they up to? And the list came up. The firms were like Paul Weiss, Perkins Coie, and Covington and Burling. All these are very popular, very big law firms in and around DC. And suddenly they found that their security access was revoked by the Trump administration. If that's not all, there was an order on the 14th of March targeting Paul Weiss, and it was rescinded after the firm agreed to drop their DEI policies and also offer $40 million in pro bono legal services aligned with Trump priorities.
Next month, in the suburbs of Boston, they'll be marking the 250th anniversary of the first shots fired in the American Revolution, a revolution that would beget a constitution with a system of checks and balances that's inspired not only other nations, but even common rules for peaceful global interaction. Will that system now bend or break? After all, it's neither the first nor the last time the White House has tested its limits. Or is Donald Trump taking the world's most powerful nation into uncharted territory? We'll ask about his bid to take that Silicon Valley adage to Washington: move fast and break things, fast enough to overwhelm a judicial branch of government that's struggling to keep up with his flurry of executive orders, what we call here decrees. What to make of the attack on judges and lawyers, the attempt to gut vast swathes of the government and shut down even public broadcasting? And do Americans mind this new turn? After all, a majority voted for Trump despite the attempt to overturn by force his defeat 4 years ago. Today in the France 24 debate, we're talking about Trump pushing the powers of the U.S. presidency. With us, he teaches at an institution that's even older than the American Revolution, one targeted right now by the Trump administration.
And finally, the deportation of hundreds of Venezuelans without the slightest bit of due process is nothing short of appalling. Aside from the tragedy that it visits upon the innocent amongst them, it destroys what is left of our judicial system. If court orders are to be ignored, which they have been in this case, and as pointed out by others in today's podcast that I've included. The question that I have is, why on earth have we not seen the applications of, or writs of habeas corpus, something that's existed in our constitutional setup since the first Judiciary Act of 1789? If these people are sitting in prisons or a prison in El Salvador, why is it not possible to return them pending the court's final decision in the matter before it? And that is a question somebody must ask, and someone must answer.